Today I have a Sony TCRX70ES that was brought to me for repair. This one here, the guy says it fast forwards, rewinds, and opens and loads the cassette compartment, but doesn't do anything else. So let's check this one out and see what the problem with it is. And that's all it does. Cool. So without even pulling the top off this, I'm going to guess it's either a belt that's failed or a motor. Let's find out. Okay, this is a 3-motor design. We have a capstan motor, a reel motor, and a control motor. Not necessarily in that order. Check and see whether the belt is jammed up on here, whether it's the motor. I think it probably is the belt. The motor is warm. I think the belt is probably jammed up and it may have burned out the motor. Let's just get a light in here so I can see what I'm doing. Oh yes, yeah, the belt is nicely wound around the motor shaft. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. You can see the belt, and the belt is actually, it's stretched and it's spooled itself around and it's jammed the motor. Sticking my nose anywhere near this thing also reveals the smell of burning electronics. So I have a sneaking suspicion that the motor itself is probably burned out as well, unfortunately. Yeah, there's the belt. It's it hasn't melted completely, but you can see what happened here. It wound itself, it stretched, it wound itself up and it stuck together, and it jammed the motor. So I hope this motor's not shot. I hope it's not shot. But at this point, I'm going to say that the chances of this motor being shot are probably 50-50, maybe greater. We'll see if it, well, let's see if I power it up, will it turn? Put the meter on it here and see if we've got any voltage on this one, and then if there's voltage on the motor, on the terminals here, and the motor's not turning, then the only thing that remains is the motor. I'll have to try and source a motor. I don't have one, unfortunately. Not now. I did have a motor up until about a week ago when I used the only motor I had. So let's just see whether there's any power getting to this motor itself. And there's 12 volts on the terminals. So that motor should be spinning, and it's not. We'll take the motor apart and see whether the motor can be repaired. But I think in this case, I'll have to get a hold of the guy that owns this and let him know that I have to try and source a motor. It's unfortunate because had it not been tried to be played with a belt that was broken, the motor probably would be okay. Although I do feel heat. This is getting warm too. The back of the motor is getting warm, so something may have shorted or the motor may have seized. We'll find out. Let me get the mechanism apart. Get the mechanism out, I should say, on this. The door first. Take the door off. Nice thing about these ones is that they come out really easy. Just undo the plugs, undo the screws, and the mechanism pops out. What could be easier than working on one of these Sonys? They're beautiful in that respect. See what I mean? They come apart super easy. If you guys wonder where the extra light's coming from, I put up a new key light. Actually, this one used to be mounted almost directly overhead, but I've got a key light over my shoulder now, which throws light on the bench. But I've got it angled in such a way as to not cast a direct shadow of me working on stuff on the equipment. So I should have a little better lighting from the front now with this bright, this is an HMI type light. Studio light, you can actually see the barn doors on it. It's an HMI type light that I've got over my shoulder, a small one. So with any key light, we do get a bit of shadow, but that's what the other lights on the bench here are for, is to complement my lighting. Okay, let's get the screws out of them. Motor block. Have to be careful to unplug the heads, so I don't want to damage the wires. So we're going to carefully remove the wires and remove the plugs for the heads. That way I can remove the screws that hold the motor block in place. Oh yeah, the motor's seized. I don't know that that motor is going to be savable. Just to see whether I can get the motor to free up. $1990 is when this one was made. Now these motors can be taken apart. They do pop apart quite easily. We'll see whether I can pop this apart and lubricate the bearings that are seized up on here. Pop off the pulley. Should be able to push the entire motor through. And perhaps see where it's jammed up. Okay, there's the motor. It's seized up at this back bearing back here. Just looking at the brushes and the contacts in here to see if they're any good, if they're damaged. Look to be okay. If I can work this out of here. Okay, here's our problem right here. You can see the so here's a close-up of the motor itself. You can see the contacts here. I'm wondering if the coils themselves may have shorts on them. This motor got stalled when that belt jammed up and caused it to get very hot. I think the actual plastic core broke. There's part of the stator assembly is still fused down here. You can see it. You can see the heat damage on the inside here. So this is going to need a new motor, this one, and that's going to be fun to try and find a new motor. I'll have to do some research and see where I can find one. I haven't had any luck finding motors for tape decks recently, and I've had to salvage from other tape decks to get motors, and I may have to do the same on this, which means buying another tape deck in order to take the motor out of it to make this one work for the client. But that, at this point, I think is probably the only solution: motor and a belt. So this is going to be a two-parter. This is the first part of the video, tearing it down to see where the problem is. But at this point, I'm going to need to find a new motor. So what I'm going to do on this one, and a belt, what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to reassemble it and put it aside, get a hold of the guy that owns it, and let him know what the fault is and what I need to find for it. And once I'm able to find a new motor,
more like if I can find a new motor,
then we'll be able to get this one going again. Anyway, there it is. Motor shot. You can see why. If you look closely down here, you'll see part of the commutator where it contacts the brushes. It's broken. Normally this plastic insulator here extends to the end of the commutator, holds it in place, and then fits into the bearing, and you can see that the back side of it is right down here. There it is. See, that's the piece that fused. It got so hot when the motor jammed, and unfortunately, had this one this one, I don't know where the guy got it from. The guy that brought it to me, whether it was his or whether he bought it off of eBay. A lot of these things show up on eBay not working because the people that are selling them know that they're going to require work, and they get rid of them. But this piece here used to be part of that, holding those pieces apart. And what happened is this thing, the belt jammed. It got hot, it melted the plastic, and it actually stuck to the back and froze. And you can see the damage right there. This whole piece has been discolored. More than likely, there's a transistor in here as well that controls the speed, because there are speed controls on here. That could be damaged too. I don't know. But anyway, the motor itself is shot. There's no way I would try putting this thing back together, even if I could get it to run, which I'm not saying I could or couldn't. But even if I could get this motor to run, it's not going to run very long because it's been shorted out. There's a good possibility that the windings have got shorts internal on them now because of the short that was there. And if you look down here, also, you can see the coil is going to be the actual motor windings are shot. You can see where they've been off gassing. Anyway, that's all I can do on this one for now. We'll pick this one up at a future date once I'm able to source a belt and a motor. Thanks for watching.